In all of the upcoming lesson videos, we're going to be talking about slope-intercept form. And in order to introduce this new topic, we need to learn a new vocabulary word. So wherever you keep notes in a binder or whatever, pull it out. Here's a new vocabulary word for you. It's y-intercept. Now the y-intercept is the point where a straight line crosses the y-axis. And the y-intercept is represented by the variable b. So remember, slope was the variable m, y-intercept is the variable b. Don't ask me where they came from, but that's what it is. Okay, let me show you an example of finding the y-intercept. So if we're looking at a graph, it's the point where the straight line crosses the y-axis. So remember, y-axis is the vertical one. So I follow it down till I find where the line meets it, and it looks like about right here. So I could either say that the y-intercept is the point 0, 4, or I could just name the y-coordinate and say that the y-intercept is 4 because it crosses at y equals 4. Okay, so does this term y-intercept remind you of anything that you've heard already? It should. It should remind you of the term initial value. We learned about initial value a couple assignments ago, and remember, initial value, we said it's where my function or my line begins. And that was true, and that's true for y-intercept too. It's where my line begins on the y-axis. Okay, let's keep this in mind as we move on to this example here. Now, I have the equation of a straight line right here, and I have the table represented by this line, and I have the graph of this line. And we need to find the slope and the y-intercept from these representations. So first of all, let's find the slope of the line. Now remember, slope is represented by the variable m, and the equation is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So let's use the table to find the slope. So I first choose 2 points, any 2 points that you want. I like any point that has a 0 in it, so I chose that one. So if this is the first point, that means this is x1 and y1. And if this is the second point I chose, then this is x2 and y2. Plug in these values into my slope equation. And I get y2 minus y1, 7 minus 5 on top, and x2 minus x1, so 1 minus 0. Okay, 7 minus 5 on the top is 2, 1 minus 0 is 1, so it looks like the slope of this line is 2. So I used the table and I found that the slope is 2. Now let's find the y-intercept. This is something new that we're learning, right? So remember, the y-intercept is where my line crosses the y-axis. So follow the y-axis down till I see where it crosses, and it looks like right here. So the y-intercept is the point 0, 5, but we're just going to name the y value. So the y-intercept is 5. Okay, these are things that should be pretty simple for us to figure out. So we found our slope is 2 and the y-intercept is 5. Where do those numbers show up in the equation? Notice that right here is my slope, and right here is my y-intercept. Now this isn't just a happy accident for my equation to look like this. This is actually the form of the equation for every and any straight line. And so if we call this equation slope-intercept form, because the slope is given, remember slope is represented by m, and the y-intercept is given. So any straight line is written in this form. Y equals the slope times x plus the y-intercept. So a lot of kids get confused when I say that any straight line can be written with this equation, and let me show you how it works. Let's say that I wanted to change the direction or change how far up or down the y-axis my line was. So in other words, I want to change the y-intercept. So if I move my line up like this, that means b would be changing. It'd change from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. Or if I go down, b would be -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. So I can move the line up and down, and all that changes is the y-intercept in the equation. And I can also change the angle of my line by changing the slope in the equation. So notice if I angle it like this, the slope would get bigger, well, let's see, smaller, no, bigger and bigger, bigger and bigger slope here. But if I flatten it out, then it would get smaller and smaller and smaller until the slope was 0. And then I could start having a negative slope. Okay? And then also, if I decide to move my line left or right, notice that my y-intercept is just changing. The y-intercept is changing when I move to the right or when I move to the left. So any straight line that I can come up with, any straight line I could draw, can be written in the equation y equals the slope times x plus the y-intercept.